Happy New Year's, brother.
Happy New Year's to you too, brother.
So, obviously, in the last episode, we talked about your holiday wishes, your Christmas wishes, if you will. So now that we have the new year upon us, what are your New Year's wishes?
I'm glad you asked because I do have sports resolutions, just as I did Christmas wishes. And I'd say the first one that comes to mind is definitely seeing the 49ers cap off the end of the season and start the new year with a win over the Seattle Seahawks. I would also like that the Warriors collective team exhibit as much offense as Steph Curry does individually. I'd also like to see the San Francisco Warriors become a top 10 defense, just as Steve Kerr projects them to be and hopes for them to be. And lastly, I'd really love to see Kyle Shanahan strongly consider firing the entire strength and conditioning staff that did us no favors in terms of health.
Okay, wait a minute. That's basically exactly what you said on the last episode.
That is 100% correct and purely coincidence.
This is
the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to the last preview edition of the 49ers. I am your host, Rudy3 and with me is my brother, my co-host.
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! Raymond, I almost screwed that up because I don't normally do that intro like that, and that almost threw me off my game. I was right there. I was right on the edge, and I brought it right back. Anyways, Raymond, we are here. This is the last preview episode for this season. The 49ers obviously not advancing to the postseason. If you don't know that, I'm not sure if you're actually a 49ers fan. This may be the wrong show. But either way, Raymond, this is it for us. This is the end of the road. I'm always a little bit sad during this time period when we don't get to, when I know that there are no more games left to preview. Always a little sad. So here we go, but we're going into this. Week 17, Seahawks coming into town, and by town, as I mentioned earlier, I mean Arizona. This was a game that was basically on the schedule last year for the 100th season. The best rivalry of the decade was to cap off the season, and it was for the first seed or the fifth seed. It was Seattle versus San Francisco, the two mega powerhouses of the last 10 years, meeting once again in the NFC Championship to decide to decide who would win the NFC West seed, the number one seed in the conference and in the division. That literally ended on the final play of the game. So when this one was put on the docket this year, I was pretty excited. I thought, okay, here we go. There once again, this game is back on the docket. Shanahan even said in one of his press conferences, like, this game usually gives my family a heart attack, gives us heart attacks, but we're looking forward to it. Unfortunately, this is not the game that we expected. This is anything but the game that we expected. This is pretty much the opposite. We have a 49ers team decimated by injuries this entire season, and this is now their final hurrah. They're in the position now, the best position you could possibly be in at this point. The thing you can hope for is to play spoiler. And so if the Niners can defeat the Seahawks, I believe the Rams will move into the number one spot for the NFC West. Am I correct on that?
If you are, God, that is a lose-lose scenario if you're a 49ers fan. I don't want to see any of these teams make the playoffs. I mean, we have already pretty much damned the Cardinals, so that's good news. But, man, if beating one gets the other one in, I suppose if I had to trade between the Los Angeles Rams and the Seahawks, I would probably want to knock the Seahawks out of position and elevate the Rams just because the Seattle has bested us so more than any of these other NFC West teams over the years. And that's because they've retained a lot of the key components that took them to back-to-back Super Bowls during the Jim Harbaugh era. Mainly, Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll being the two big driving forces that have that have stayed, consistent with, maintaining the persona of this team. But, man, that is a tough pill to swallow no matter how you slice it. But I suppose I will take I don't know if I feel like I'm taking the blue pill no matter what, and I'm not going to Wonderland. I'm going back to reality into my cubicle desk like Neo had to choose in The Matrix. And so I guess I take the blue pill and hope that Seattle loses and that the Rams get elevated into division championship position. But that's by default. So, I mean, I guess the other
one of our rivals
lining
has to win if we don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one, silver lining to it if you're a Niners fan is that the Rams didn't earn it. They were gifted to it by the 49ers. You're welcome.
Exactly. So here we go, man. This is I'm not convinced that Seahawks are super good. They've been very sketchy all year, but for some reason, as we already mentioned, when they come into San Francisco, they play us very, very hard. They have not looked nearly as dominant across the league and across the division, but for some reason, Pete Carroll just seems to have the Niners number no matter who the coach is. And I thought Shanahan's game plan was fairly suspect the last time, so let's see what happens this week. I'm holding out hope that it gets a little bit better. But let's start, of course, Raymond, always with what Vegas is saying about the general outline. What does the betting public say about this game? So let's get started here. So, NFL, Week 17, Seahawks at 49ers. This game, the Seattle Seahawks are 11-4, pretty good record there. There are 4-3 on the road. San Francisco, 6-9. We are 1-6 at home. We have been god awful at home, but then again, we haven't even played at home for half these games. So, but we I believe, did we have a better road record last year too? Is that true?
Yeah, the first Seahawks game was in Seattle, and we lost that in overtime. And then we lost to the Ravens on the road. So So it was the opposite. So, I mean, 2 out of our 3 losses last year were on the road.
Okay. So
and the other one, the Atlanta game was at home.
Okay. This game is going to be this Sunday, January 3rd, 2021. It's going to be at 1:25 Eastern. And let's look at what we have here. So, right now, as of
1:25, you mean Pacific time.
Pacific time, sorry.
Home game.
Yes, home game. You got it. So, it's important to note that these lines are as up to date as of this Wednesday. We normally record this episode on Thursday. These are the lines, and everything, the scouting report, the injury report, everything we're dropping to you will be as up to date as of Wednesday. But obviously, we're not recording on Thursday because it's New Year's Eve. All right, and none of you guys are going to be listening to this. You're all going to be drunk watching videos of the 2019 49ers season. All right,
not a bad decision, too, if you choose to do that. I wouldn't judge anyone.
No, not at all. So the spread right now, Seattle, they still have us in a tight one. That Seattle is obviously the favorites. They have the minus 5.5. San Francisco, obviously 5.5. Okay, the over-under total, 46.5 points. And right now, the betting public, nobody believes in the 49ers. 80% of the Vegas betting public is putting their money on Seattle. Don't blame them at all, right at there at all. So let's take a look here. Let's look at some stats. So Seattle is averaging 28.9 points per game this season. That's number 7 in the NFL. Seattle is only surrendering 23.2 points per game this season. That's tied for 12th in the NFL. San Francisco's averaging 23.5 points per game. That's 20th in the NFL. And they're surrendering 24.3 points per game, tied for 16th in the NFL. So they are averaging about identical, Raymond, what Seattle allows. So that plays right into Seattle's hands as far as just from that really basic metric. So they're surrendering 24 points per game, which is about 4 points less than Seattle's used to making. But in general, this, of course, the numbers are not on our side, but we're going to kind of break that down and go into our matchups and what we think is actually going to happen in a minute. I'm going to pass this off to you now. Let the people know, of course, about the dreaded and ever constant injury report. As of Wednesday today, December 30th, what are you seeing on the injury report?
Well, Kyle Shanahan already announced earlier in the week that Trent Williams' ankle will not be participating this Sunday. So there goes a
Well,
huge
I did not hear that.
blow.
Are you serious?
Yes,
Trent
left
Williams
tackle.
is out? Oh my God.
Oh, it gets better. Stick around. Brandon Ayuk also dealing with an ankle injury. He's out for this Sunday game. This was all announced earlier in the week, shortly after the victory this past week against the Cardinals. So no Brandon Ayuk, no Trent Williams. That to me is actually ties into, which is why I kind of alluded to my preview leanings in our previous episode. I will give that up here as we get to the predictions. But that's a huge blow. Richard Sherman dealing with a calf injury. He didn't participate in practice today. Kevin Givens, one of our defensive linemen, depth players, didn't participate today. Non-injury related, but not someone that you care either way if he's in the lineup. No offense. Deion Jordan, the free agent acquisition that we got during the season to just fill in some of the defensive linemen we were losing. He was limited in practice today. He'll probably play. Javon Kinlaw, dealing with a knee injury, did not participate in practice. Tavarius Moore, our defensive back, he was limited in practice today. Emmanuel Mosley, limited in practice today. They will most likely suit up this Sunday. Limited in practice today is a good sign. We'll see how tomorrow plans out. I think they might have a break on Friday unless they're practicing on New Year's Day. We'll see how that goes. Mark Nazacha, dealing with an illness. He didn't participate today. He'll most likely be ready to go. We know Deebo Samuel's not in the lineup. Justin School, dealing with a knee injury, limited in practice today. He'll most likely play. Jimmy Ward was in concussion protocol, but he was a full participant today. Great news there. We need him in the lineup. Kawan Williams had dealing with that shin injury. He did not participate today. This is one to watch out for because we definitely need him in the lineup. He's obviously a difference maker. He can sack the quarterback. He can cover. He can stop the run. He's just a multi-gadget player, very similar to Jimmy Ward in that regard. He's our nickel down back, so love to see him there. So we'll have to watch the injury reports tomorrow to see if Kawan Williams shows up. If he's not there, things are not looking good. If he shows up, things are looking good. I already told you Trent Williams is out. Jordan Willis didn't participate today. I don't expect him to play. Charlie Warner, one of the drafty tight ends, was a full participant today, but I'm not expecting much out of him because George Kittle's back, and we also have Jordan Reed. So having both of them in the lineup really doesn't bode well for Charlie Warner. Not a bad thing necessarily, just kind of a too bad situation for him. But when you have one Pro Bowl caliber player and Jordan Reed and George Kittle, who is a bona fide Pro Bowler, there's not much argument you can make for Charlie Warner getting in the lineup and getting any touches. On the Seattle side, DJ Dallas ankle didn't participate. Not a big deal because Carson's probably going to be getting most of the snaps anyways.
By the way, he sounds like he is a EDM Coachella mainstay hailing from Texas for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Jason Stanley, cornerback, hamstring, didn't participate. Demarius Randall, strong safety, didn't participate. Mike Iupati did not participate today. Greg Olson did not participate today. Carlos Hyde, illness, did not participate today. I expect him to be there on Sunday. Dwayne Brown, another tackle, limited in practice today. Brandon Shell, another tackle, limited in practice today. Jaron Reed, defensive tackle, limited in practice. Ryan Neal, limited in practice. Chris Carson, limited in practice. Chris Carson will play, make no doubts about it. But Carlos Dunlap, defensive end, limited in practice. Freddie Swain, wide receiver, full participant. But again, this is our support guys. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are the two monsters that you really have to account for.
You mean their support guys?
Their support guys. Jamal Adams, strong safety, full participant. Tyler Ott, long snapper, who cares? LJ Collier, defensive end, full participant. And Brian Moan, defensive tackle, full participant. So long list on both sides of the equation here, although I want to say Seattle is by far the healthier team. That is reflected in their record at 11-4, playoff bound no matter what the result is of this game, which is far more than I can say for our dear 49ers. But if you want to get more information on how little I care of this team, then you're going to want to go to the 12th Man cast, the 12th cast, or the What the Hell is a Seahawk cast. Rudy, I believe you listened to a few different podcasts. Which ones are those?
Yeah, there's actually a couple sub-faction rival podcasts amongst each other happening in Seattle. There is the How Can We Have 12 When No One's in the Stands cast. There is the We're Pumping the Same Amount of Noise as we did before, but it's not the same cast. Those are some popular ones. There's another one. This is my favorite. I Hate the Seahawks cast.
That's my favorite podcast of theirs as well.
That's mine.
Good guys.
That's mine
Good
too.
guys.
The good guys. Good guys.
Good guys.
We may guest star on it every day of our life. That might be just how we live.
Friends of the show.
Friends of the show.
Friends of the show.
There's Johnny Dell. There's Max. There's Louis B. There's I Hate the Seahawks cast.
Yes. So to me, I mean, this really comes down to matchups, right? I mean, it always comes down to matchups. And of course, everyone's been talking about how the Seahawks defense has woken up as of late, and they've given up just 14.5 points over their past 5 weeks. But what I thought was interesting, which I want to talk about here, is like, okay, who are those last 5 opponents? Let's take a close look to see who those last 5 opponents were. The first one, I'm going from most recent backwards, the Rams, which they won 20-9. Now, the Rams, we know, have already been regressing in this latter half of the season and been losing ground. And that's because, again, their running game is inconsistent. You have a quarterback who's a mostly a pocket passer, although he can run. But if you pressure him enough, he's very easy to rattle. And that is a huge liability for that team. They beat the Washington football team, not known for their offensive prowess. They only scored 15 points in that game. And again, they're dealing with Alex Smith was the backup, but he got injured. And now they're back down to Dwayne Haskins. I don't know if that's still the case. I think it is.
He got booted off the team. He was cut. You know,
Haskins did?
Because he went to like a strip club.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He didn't know. I didn't know it was a strip club.
And wait, hold up. There's a pandemic?
Yeah. Like what? I thought I just meeting up with a homegirl who just happened to work at this restaurant.
I've got a lot of friends named Caramel. That's a very common name.
Yes. And her sister Salty was there. So again, Rams, Washington football team, not big offensive powerhouses here. Okay, let's keep going. The third team they beat in this list, the New York Jets, who only recently won their first game of the season. Before that, they lost to, guess who? The New York Giants. Another dismal team who has been playing better in the second half, but let's face it, this is the New York Giants. They're going to have a top 10 draft position this next coming offseason. And the team before that, just for good measure, was the Philadelphia Eagles. So outside of the Rams, I see a pattern here of subpar teams that Seattle was able to get past. And by the way, Philadelphia, 23-17. New York, the Jets, 43 was the only convincing win here. Washington football, 20-15. The Rams was a 2-possession win, I guess. I mean, not by much, 20-9. 1 2-point conversion, and you're pretty darn close to that team. Washington, 1-possession game. The Giants, they lost by 1 possession. And the Eagles, they beat by 1 possession. So outside of the Jets, which was the only convincing 40-3 blowout, this is still, in my opinion, very much the same team. They've just been facing inferior opponents that make their defense look much better than they are. I still think this is a subpar defense like you do, but unfortunately, I just think there's a little bit too much health that is giving advantage to this contest coming up.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about matchups. I mean, you just dropped the one matchup that I think we need to talk about. The only matchup that's really going to even matter in this game, Trent Williams. We have an offensive line that's been exposed all season long. Nick Mullins, we saw the beating he took. You said earlier on this podcast, earlier in the season, that if Nick Mullins keeps getting pummeled like this, he will go down. And he lasted longer than we expected, but unfortunately, he went down. And so now we've got C.J. Beathard, who played fairly well last week, but we also know similar to Nick Mullins, he's only capable of playing at this level for a really short time, and then it goes down pretty fast. Okay, so if he's going to have the same offensive line issues that Nick Mullins had, I think you can confidently expect a pretty intense beating coming to him this Sunday. The question is, are we going to be able to work around Trent Williams? Obviously, we're probably going to put George Kittle on that side sometimes, but we can't have George Kittle over there just blocking all day, double teaming, because then we lose him as an offensive player, as an offensive receiver. Then also we have Ayuk, who has been our Swiss Army knife all season long, has basically been Debo 2.0. He's out of the lineup. So who takes the place of Debo Samuels in this lineup? Because Debo's not even coming back, right? I'm right on that, right?
No, he's done for the year.
Yeah, he's done for the year.
He's done.
So now we are already very, very tight at wide receiver, and it looks like we're going to continue being tight at this position. And I just think that defensively, this is a team that, whether or not they've earned it, they believe that they are firing on all cylinders, and they have no wide receivers to contend with. They have our best lineman, the left tackle Trent Williams, gone. I mean, if I'm sitting there and I'm Seattle, I'm thinking we cover the backups of the wide receivers. We attack from the end. Goodbye. This is done in 4 quarters. So, Raymond, let me ask you, what do you see? I mean, are you, yes, I agree with you, or you're like, well, no, here's how we can get around this?
I don't know. I honestly don't think whoever comes in at left tackle is just Seattle's going to do exactly what every team does. Where's the biggest glaring weakness that they're dealing with right now? And let's expose it. For example, Emmanuel Mosley and Sherman were out multiple games this year. Whoever was filling in that gap, every team targeted that person. At one point, it was a rookie off of, practice squad. So he just got torched. I forget which game it was, but he just got torched hard. And so I think, expect the pass rush to just get pummeled on that left tackle side. And it's unfortunate, but I think that's going to be a huge thing. I mean, the good news is that C.J. Beathard is probably the most mobile out of all 3 of our quarterbacks, so I do expect him to use his legs a little bit. And if I was Kyle Shanahan, I think it would be prudent to encourage him to step out and run a little bit. Just obviously be smart about it. We obviously know that there is a right way to run. There's a football way to run, and then there's a smart way to run. I think Russell Wilson is example of the smart way to run. Kyler Murray is an example of the football way to run. Lamar Jackson also an example of the football way to run. And then, so I think C.J. Beathard is kind of somewhere in between. Sometimes I've seen him take hits. Sometimes, he's done the right thing. But we'll just have to see. I think Seattle's going to expose this weakness hard. And if Sherman doesn't play because of the calf injury, then I expect whoever fills in. If it's Emmanuel Mosley and Jason Verrett, not a bad combination. But I know that Emmanuel Mosley can only handle so much of DK Metcalf, and that will DK Metcalf will eventually win that battle, as he did earlier in the season. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, that's not a favorable matchup. I don't like that one. I like Kwan Williams and Tyler Lockett. I also like Kwan Williams versus Jason Verrett. I think those are good matchups for our guys. Again, DK Metcalf is the one big X. He's just so darn big and so darn fast. He's just a freak. He's similar to Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens had tremendous size and tremendous speed, and it just made him very difficult to deal with. And DK Metcalf has really come into his own this season, which is why I think he's just kind of a nightmare matchup, especially since he just keeps getting better, which if you're a Seahawks fan, you love to see. If you're any other team, you're dreading that, unless, of course, you have him on your fantasy, then good job. But that, to me,
cousin Brian
those
I defeated for the championship.
Yes, that's right. Back-to-back championships.
Thank you.
And so to me, I think those are the big ones that stick out to me. Defensively, I think the Niners will be able to hang for about half half of this contest. And then I think third and fourth quarter, this is really going to start to slip away because I just think the offense is not going to be able to generate as much efficiency as they did last week. Don't expect over 200 yards rushing against the Seattle team, even though their defense is not the greatest defense against the run. But I still expect them. They're easier to pass against than to rush against. But with so many guys out, with the pass protection compromise, and so many receiving weapons out, that limits our ability to be efficient. And we need the running game in order to be more efficient in the pass, because that sets up Kyle Shanahan's play action pass. And I just don't know if that's going to be a big tool that we're going to be able to expose against the Seahawks, because I just feel like we're just missing too many guys, which has been the story of the season.
Absolutely. It has been the story of the season. And again, we're kind of going into our final contest depleted and without missing a lot of weapons and just missing what we need to effectively pull off Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh's schemes to the utmost of their ability. So, Raymond, with that, what is your final prediction for the final game for the 49ers this season?
To me, I think there's just too much health problems with the 49ers against a team that can put up points when they're hot, and they tend to play us very well despite being very hot and cold against every other team. So I really think, even though I'm the eternal optimist, the realist side of me is kicking in for this particular game. I do think the Seahawks win here. I think it's something around the lines of 27-17, something around there.
I was going to play the role of foolish optimist and go for the Niners, but once you told me Trent Williams was out, that was it for me. I think that's a wrap. That and Brandon Ayuk together is just too much to overcome. We hope with all sincerity that this is not the case. We really do. But I'm going to say this kind of goes into blowout territory. I'm going to go 32-21. 32-20, but I'll stick with 32-21. I think we put up one more touchdown in garbage time to make it not make it look like we lose 32-14, and I think that's about a wrap. And so what say you, GoldCast Nation? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast and let us know what your pick is for the final game of the season. And then, of course, Raymond, we'll be back in the new year to recap this final 49ers game.
We will.
And then, of course, we will be following the playoffs. We'll be following all of our NFC West rivals and just having general discussion. And, of course, Warriors are back. Baseball, not that far behind away, just a couple months away. Very much looking forward to this new San Francisco Giants season after their stellar performance last year, kind of surprise performance. And right now with the Warriors, we are going to be bringing Candlestick Will back in to start talking Warriors weekly. I am really excited, Raymond, about James Wiseman, the rookie. The kid is good.
It's only been 4 games, but he seems to fit like a glove. He doesn't look like a 19-year-old trying to find his way in the National Basketball Association. He seems like a pro playing center the way you should play center, which is really, really encouraging. I know it's early in the season, but considering his age and his position, to have him play the way he's played in the first 4 games of the year is, you got to feel pretty damn good about his growth going forward.
Yeah. A lot of analysts have kind of commented on his length, his offense and defense. I mean, the kid could be special. And so I'm really excited. I'm really excited to follow his season with the Warriors, and it's great to see Steph back playing at the level that he is. I just wish Clay was here too.
Totally. I mean, they're at 500. But I mean, not to I know we're going to get more into that when Candlestick Will comes back, but going back to the Niner game, I'd like to talk about players to watch.
Let's hit our players to watch before we wrap.
Yeah, offensively, I'm going to say keep your eyes on C.J. Beathard. How does he handle the pocket against a pass rush that's going to be taking advantage of a vulnerability on the left tackle side of things? And then defensively, I think I'm going to actually go to Fred Warner. Fred Warner has been playing outstanding. I believe he's going to the Pro Bowl. So let's see how he finishes the season, how he can help generate opportunities for the offense to get back on the field and stay in this game as close as they can, because I have a feeling that they're going to be playing behind most of this contest. So eyes on eyes on Fred Warner defensively and offensively. Let's see how our man CJ does.
All right, and then very quickly on my end, I'm going to say I want you to pay attention to the left side of the line. How do they handle Trent Williams being out? This is something we always, this dreaded injury bug that we've had with the Niners dating all the way back to 2014 Harbaugh's last year has not gone away. So how does the left side of the line, what do they do to scheme and try to protect CJ Beathard's blind side? The next thing I'm looking for on defense is Kerry Hyder. How does Kerry Hyder handle the pressure? If he's going to be with us for the next 1 to 2 years beyond this, how does he handle the Seattle Seahawks? Because this is the team we will have to go through year in and year out to take the number 1 seed. And they're going to have to come through us, especially if we're going to stay healthy. So those are
barring any injury to Russell Wilson, they're always going to be in it as long as he's in the lineup.
Absolutely. So there you go. Those are our players to watch. Let us know what you think. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the conversation. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy3, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.